For this assignment, you should have out the scale creation major scales worksheet as seen right here. The first thing that we need to do before we create a scale is we need to look at the keyboard. So we are going to go ahead and label the notes for the C scale on the keyboard first. So if we remember, C is to the left of the two black keys, and we're just going to go up the musical alphabet until we get to the second C. Now what we want to do is we want to look at the pattern between each of the notes. So in between C and D is a whole step because there's a black key between it. In between D and E, also a whole step, which as you can see we are labeling with a W. Now in between E and F is a half step because there is no black key between it. Between F and G, another whole step. G and A, another whole step. A to B, another whole step. And from B to C, we have our final half step. Again, because there is no black key or other key between it. So now what we are going to do is we're going to write down that pattern, and you should be writing it down on your worksheet as well. So the pattern for creating a scale is whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. So let's use that pattern, and we're going to try to create the B flat scale. So first we need to find B flat on the keyboard, and that's the key, black key on the right of the three. So looking down in our pattern, the first note would be B flat, and then we need a whole step, which means we need a key in between. So we're going to go from B flat to C. Now we need another whole step. So we're going to go from C to D. But now we need a half step. So we are going to go from D up a half step to E flat. Now we need another whole step. So we're going to go from E flat to F. Another whole step, F to G. Another whole step, G to A. And then a half step, A to B flat. So let's try to create a sharp scale now. So we are going to do the G scale. So we first have to find G on the keyboard. So now we need a whole step. So we're going to go G to A. Now we need another whole step. So we'll go from A to B. But now we need a half step. So as you can see, there is no black key between B and C. So that is going to be our half step. C to D will be our next whole step. D to E will be our next whole step. Now we need another whole step. So we're on E and we can't go to F because that's only a half step. So we're going to go E to F sharp. And for our final half step, we're going to go from the F sharp back to the G. And there's our G scale. So now we're going to look at all the flat scales. And they're all listed right here. So we want to see if we can find any patterns in the flat scale. So I want you to look through the chart right now and see if you can notice any patterns amongst all of the flat scales. So one thing that we want to point out is that in every single flat scale, The fourth note of the scale is always flat. And the other thing that you'll notice for every scale is that the first note and the last note of the scale match. So now we're looking at our sharp scales. And again, noticing that every scale starts and ends on the exact same note. What pattern or what similarities do you see between these scales? You should notice that the seventh note of every sharp scale is sharp. Looking back at the flat scales for a minute, you should already know the order of sharps and flats from that video. And now what you're going to notice is, for every scale, the flats go in order. So the first scale, the F scale, has a B flat. Then the next scale starts on B flat, and we add an E flat. So the next scale starts on E flat, and we add an A flat, but also keep the B flat. The scale with 4 flats in it starts on A flat, and we add a D flat, but keep the B flat and the E flat. So the F scale has 1 flat, the B flat scale has 2, E flat has 3, A flat has 4, B flat has 5, G flat has 6, and C flat has 7. This works the same way for the sharp scales. The first sharp scale, G, has an F sharp in it. 1 sharp. D is our next scale, and it has 2 sharps. It keeps the F sharp, and it adds the C sharp. Our next scale, A, has 3 sharps in it. It keeps the F sharp and the C sharp, and it adds the G sharp. E has 4 sharps, keeping F sharp, C sharp, G sharp, and adding D sharp. B has 5, again keeping F sharp, C sharp, G sharp, D sharp, and adding A sharp. F sharp has 6, keeping F sharp, C sharp, G sharp, D sharp, A sharp, and adding the E sharp. And our final sharp scale has 7, keeping F sharp, C sharp, G sharp, D sharp, A sharp, E sharp, and C sharp. In addition to and keeping B sharp.